honest and to be truthful in our pronouncements. We pray for those who are on their way that you may hasten their steps, dear God, and that when we shall have come to the end of this meeting, we may say it was good for us to be here as we sought solution for the betterment of our country. These mercies we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, member. Members, let me just start by indicating that we have a new addition to the committee. I'd like to welcome Member of Parliament Denise Daly to the PAAC. She's a former member in another period of time, and I'm sure that her contribution will be well received. So welcome and good to have you. Members, we have some apologies. Member Spencer, Williams, and Terry Long are not here, but we do understand that today is the opening of the CARICOM, and so there are a number of members who have gone down to that function, as well as other members who would have gone to the celebration for our national hero, Norman Manley, in Roxborough this morning. Members, we have had a little break. The committee meets usually 3 weeks a month. We take 1 week off. We're the only committee that normally meets every week. The clerk had asked us to take 1 week so that they could have a rotation of other committees due to the frequency of our meetings. We are taking that week before last Wednesday. Then last week we were told by the Parliament had a training session, so we were unable to meet then. They met on Tuesday and Wednesday. I understand there's another training section on the 17th and 18th, am I correct? So there may be challenges for that meeting, and we're going to have that discussion as to whether we're going to have that meeting or not. However, just to say that for the next meeting, next week, I do not think, seeing the amount of departments and agencies that fall under the Ministry of, well, it's not Energy, Science and Technology, no?
Science, Energy and Technology.
Well, it was invited as Science, Energy and Technology, but all the departments that are here, we certainly will not be able to finish today. So I'm just going to suggest to members that we do what we can today. We continue next week if we are not able to finish. However, there is an outstanding matter of the Ministry of Youth, which had a program, I think it was a charger program, something like that, which we had questions about, and they have not returned with those questions. With the answers. I'm going to ask the clerk that immediately before we start the meeting next week, if they can come and let us clarify those issues. All right, with those opening comments, members, we have the minutes of the last meeting. I take them as read. If there are no corrections.
Well, I'd like to do a correction, because it has me quoted as saying that the shift from heavy fuel oil to LNG will be done in 12 months, but I think I was a little bit more conservative than that, and I thought I'd said 15 to 18 months. So just to be accurate, it's certainly not 12 months. I don't think we'll get those projects completed in the 12 months.
So we'll put just 18 months.
Yes, put it at 18
in the minutes, as that was the intention.
Right.
Yes.
On page 4, on the chairmanship of Petrojam Limited. I think that was attributed, here it is attributed to me, but I think it was Member Paulwell who spoke about the chairmanship of Petrojam, page 4.
All right, so we can have that clear. All right, members, just for the minutes. At the last meeting, if you read the minutes, we had indicated that we were inviting the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation with UDC, etc. We had gotten a letter immediately from the Permanent Secretary, which also falls under Office of the Prime Minister. We had gotten a letter which indicated that the ministry would be at the CARICOM today and would be unable to attend. What we had done, we had circulated to all members, and the next ministry on the agenda was the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. So they were invited and moved up, and I think it is probably a good thing that it was done that way, because with the relationship with Petrojam and everything moves seamlessly. So we will take them, and when we finish this, we will revert to the agenda as circulated to members, and the Ministry of Economic Growth will come after.
Chairman, I'm just looking at the list of agencies that are here, and I'm not too sure if you've worked out in your own mind as yet, but I don't believe that everybody is needed today, and we really wouldn't want to waste the valuable time of the officers. So probably we could just decide on those agencies that are needed, and those that we don't need to, we'll have them go back to do the work of the people.
All right, so, yeah, so member, if you want to make some suggestions.
Yes, may I suggest that if the Postal Corporation of Jamaica is here, fine, we don't need that.
I don't see Postal Corporation on the list.
I just got a list a while ago. So unless
no, could you look on that? I'm looking at the agenda.
Okay, I just got a.
I don't know if I. What should we look at?
Someone just gave me a list a while ago.
Could you look on the agenda?
So yes, the Scientific Research Council, they have some important work doing, and I figure that they should go and continue doing the work. I don't think we need the Spectrum Management Authority today. And I suppose the others would be relevant. So I would say the Scientific Research Council.
All right.
And Spectrum
EGO Jamaica Limited?
No, I think that is a relevant agency for us.
All right. Nestle, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Project, which is managed by PCJ, so PCJ is here with us today. And we have here the Energy Security and Efficiency Enhancement Project, which I understand is closed, but that we could get a briefing if so. And of course, Petrojam. All right, so
we could release SRC and Spectrum Management.
Well, are the members here from SRC? No, you're very anxious. The SRC and, all right, so I know you would all want to stay with us, but all right, yes, you may go. All right, members, I'm going to start today. Let me start by introducing Ms. Murray, who is the acting permanent secretary at the ministry. Welcome to the committee. Yes, and I'd asked her if she had if she had wanted to make some comments. She has indicated that they would go straight into the discussion rather than overview. In terms of the members here, What I would suggest, given the numbers, is that as we deal with the specific areas, that we do the introductions as we do the specific areas. All right, members? All right, we're going to start with Petrojam as a continuation from last week. There is a team here from Petrojam. Can the team hold up their hands? All right, but you're all very far. Can't. I think, members, I think both PCJ and Petrojam, if we could do a little switch around just so that we can actually, and usually we find that some of the services down there are a little more difficult. We would ask if they could just, yes, if we could just come a little closer so that we can, the relevant persons. I will come to that. All right, members, just for information, at the last meeting of the committee, Petrojam present, we had indicated there were a number of questions that we had wanted answered. The Petrojam Limited wrote us on June the 29th, and the letter that we got on June the 29th indicated that the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology wishes to advise that Petrojam Limited has indicated that the computers which were confiscated by the Integrity Commission on Tuesday, June 26, were returned today. Consequently, they are constrained in their ability to prepare the requisite responses for the PAAC for the Monday, July 2nd, 2018 deadline, which was sought. MSET hereby seeks the guidance of the PAAC as to how Petrojam Limited should proceed in relation to the provision of written responses. On receiving that, the clerk had indicated that they should move ahead and provide what information was possible, and we would address it at today's meeting. We received further correspondence on June the 3rd. The letter was sent, July the 3rd. This letter was sent to me, and it indicates, Dear Dr. McNeil, several questions were raised at the PAAC meeting held on June 13th, 2018, in respect of the following matters at Petrojam. The former BOD chairman, travel/reimbursements. Number 2, the HR manager's qualifications and compensation. 3, donations and outreach program. 4, engagement of consultants, in brackets, Asha Corporation. 5, engagement of public relations retainer, main event. 6, the construction of the northern boundary wall. 7, purchase of reformer furnace. 8, vacuum distillation unit. And 9, renovation of corporate office ground floor. The management team, led by Mr. Floyd Grinley, also appeared before Cabinet on Monday, June the 30th, 2018, to respond to these matters. Mr. Floyd Grinley, General Manager, has since June 13th, 2018, undertook the responsibility for handling responses to these issues himself. Mr. Grinley has advised that he had to depart the island today to attend to a family emergency, and therefore will not be able to attend the PAAC meeting set for July 4th, 2018. Given his untimely absence and his substantive handling of the matters, Petrojam Limited is requesting a postponement of the PAAC meeting until Mr. Grinley returns to office. This was signed by Telroy Morgan, who is the acting GM. We received this letter yesterday afternoon. Mr. Morgan is here with us today and has really been brought in on very short notice. I think we could start by asking Mr. Morgan, who is here with us, certainly can introduce the team that's with him, if he, let us know, or those that you feel are necessary to introduce. And then secondly, could you fill us in with some details as to the absence of Mr. Grinley? And then we'll take it from there. What I would ask you is to just turn on the mic in front of you, and you can just turn the microphone. So, welcome, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning all. I am Telroy Morgan. My substantive role is Acting Manager for Refinery Optimization and Business Support. I am filling in for Mr. Grinley, who indicated that he had to depart the island on a very urgent family matter, and therefore asked me to fill in for him. So I have been overseeing the operations of the Petrojam refinery since Tuesday morning.
Since yesterday morning?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. I had a discussion with Mr. Morgan, and I've indicated that given the sequence of events, they have not been able to prepare a written report, number one. And number two, Mr. Grinley had been handling all the responses. But Mr. Morgan indicated that he does have some of the responses verbally. So what I'd suggested, and what I would suggest, members, is that we have a list of issues that those that Mr. Morgan can give us responses to, that he give us the responses, that we take them as given. We would ask for a written report before the end of the week, and next week we can go into more detail when Mr. Grinley returns. and that in the areas, members, that we want some additional information or clarity, where possible, we would ask Mr. Morgan to assist us with that in the interim. So what may be useful is that we go by the list that we have in front of us of the questions that were asked. So that would be okay with you, Mr. Morgan?
Sure, that's fine, Chairman. And may I introduce the team as
yes,
you had
absolutely.
requested
Go.
before?
All
right, thank you very much. So I did my own introductions. Michelle Forbes from MSET, or just Petrojam? Okay, that's fine. So I have with me Mr. Leon Jarrett. Leon, you can your own introductions through the mic.
My name is Leon Jarrett. I'm the manager for safety, environment, and quality.
Okay. All right. Any other?
So we have Michael Hewitt. Mike, go ahead.
Mike Hewitt, Logistics and Marketing.
Yolande Ramharak, Manager, Human Resource Development and Administration.
Olivia Cole, VDU Project Director.
Tamara Robinson, Legal Officer, Corporate Secretary.
Okay. Simeon Hall, Manager, Technical Services.
Don Griffiths, Acting Production Manager.
Okay, I think that's about it for the team, and so we do have MSET, PCJ as support as necessary.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Caroline. Very important member of the team.
Absolutely.
Caroline Evans, Acting CFO for a month now. My substantial post is that of the Financial Treasurer.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take what we can as verbal reports. We'll get the reports after. I think what we would do is seek clarity at this point and then use it afterwards. So, Mr. Morgan, I would start with the information on the former Board of Director Chairman's travels and reimbursement.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chairman. In response to the questions that were raised at the last sitting pertaining to Board Chairman Percival Bahadur Singh and his travel and reimbursements, we do have information on that. Specifically, what were requested at the time about his London visit. The visit actually occurred, or the trip should have been between February the 25th and March the 1st. This was actually purchased by the chairman, and the chairman was actually reimbursed on the 5th of March 2018. In terms of refund to Petrojam from the chairman, that expense for the London trip was reimbursed on the 30th of May 2018 for a sum of $8,384.21. For the Brazil trip, which was subsequent to that, date of the trip was May 28th through to the 25th. That's when the visit should have occurred. Reservation dates for the ticket purchased by the chairman was for the 21st through to the 27th, and Petrojam reimbursed the chairman on the 8th of May 2018. The chairman...
Sorry,
yes,
just
sure.
Could you said the Brazil trip was on what date?
So for the Brazil trip, so the date of visit, May 20th to the 21st.
All right.
Sorry, to the 25th. To the 25th. And reservation dates for the tickets purchased by the chairman was actually the 25th to the 27th. So I mean, as it stands.
But then he'd be going after.
So again, the visit should have been May 20th to the 21st, right? To the 25th.
Right.
And based on what was purchased, it would be May 21st to the 27th. So yes, he would have been going after and leaving after, right? Based on the information that we have.
Okay.
Right.
So he purchased that ticket and was reimbursed for it.
Yes, and that reimbursement, Chairman, was actually done on May the 8th.
That was a reimbursement?
Yes.
To the chairman.
To the chairman.
No, to the chairman.
To the chairman.
Yeah.
And chairman returned these amounts to Petrojam on May 30th.
Along with the London.
Yes, in the amount of $7,873.29.
Some dates not adding up. You said the trip was supposed to be May 20th.
To the 25th.
25th.
Yes.
He was reimbursed when?
So based on the information that's here, Petrojam reimbursed the chairman on May the 8th.
So he was reimbursed for the trip before he...
No, because, what happened is that he purchased a ticket. They paid him for him purchasing the ticket on May the 8th.
Indeed.
Although the trip was, he had purchased a ticket to go.
Okay.
So but what happened is, having not gone, when the London trip happened, he reimbursed both at the same time.
Correct, Chairman. Correct.
Yes, Member Paulman, yeah.
The further question, you have referred to 2 trips.
Yes.
How many trips are in question, though? Because it's my understanding that reimbursements took place for more than 2 trips, and I suspect you would have that information.
Correct, Member Paulwell. We do have a substantive list of all the trips that chairman would have been engaged with.
Well, for now, I'm interested in those that he did not attend.
Okay, as far as the information goes, these are the only 2, correct, my team? If there are any other information, let me know. But these are the only 2 that we're aware of.
How many trips do you have on that list?
Checking, just give me a few here, Chairman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just taking a quick count, ballpark.
A lot of adding.
Ballpark of about, I'm just eyeballing about 25 trips. I mean, the actual amount will be submitted.
25 trips?
Yes, Chairman.
In what period of time was he chairman?
This period of time is between the 23rd of December 2016 to May the 10th, 2018. And the May the 10th would have been the trip surrounding Brazil. Starting date, that's the 23rd of December 2016.
Yes.
May 10th, 2018.
Yes.
Could you say whether or not those trips include, in the fact that he was living abroad, whether or not those trips include coming to Jamaica?
Can you clarify that?
I think what he's asking is
25
how many of these were trips to, say, conferences and otherwise, or
meetings
how many
in Jamaica.
Are this list inclusive of just trips coming to Jamaica from Maryland as well?
Okay, as to the actual amount, it would need some drilling down into an analysis.
Well,
the information
we
is
will
there.
get that.
But the substantive information is here, Chairman, and will be shared.
Just for further clarity, we see reimbursements for the trips. Now, when he was going to, say, London or Brazil, does he also get per diem and hotel expenses?
So typically for all trips, per diem would be available. But in terms
but
of
it's not
scenarios,
typically what we want. The chairman wants to know. He wants to know whether or not specifically funds were given for BDM, not typically.
relating to these, I'm getting the indication that no disbursement of per diem were involved for these 2 trips. Yes, that's a nod that I'm getting. Yeah.
Or for the hotels? All right, so no, I think we need to, as I said, what we're trying to do is to get information, and we will go in more depth
yes,
further.
but I hear the acting general manager saying that there were no disbursements. And somebody said definitively, and he said, yes, there are no disbursements. If there are no disbursements, why are we asking about hotels? Because there are no disbursements. You know?
No, member Dalrymple, no, I think what I'm trying to do is not put them in an invidious position. So I think when we ask a question, what we want is for them to ensure that they can, at least where they don't have the definitive information, that they can at least go and look at it and come back. I don't want a point where they make a decision and then you hear it's another way. So I'm trying as best as possible.
I understand, Chairman, but I'm also careful with all that is around this, that we shouldn't put any of them in a position where it becomes another discussion where we are in the open.
We are on the same wavelength.
Chairman?
No, 1 second. I have, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you to Mr. Morgan. Yes. Mr. Morgan, is it standard practice for board members to purchase their airline tickets, or is it normally done by the PS or through the ministry?
I believe, member, that this question was actually raised the last time. I believe General Manager Greenlee did respond with support from our acting accounting manager, where that is concerned.
Clarification, because that is not the normal procedure, we understand. Could the accounting manager speak to it?
Yeah, just lift up. No, it's turning on. That's it. Just lift up that right. I tell you. All right, could you use try the other mic on the other side? Maybe that will work.
Okay. For the chairman, based on our review of the facts and the data, those didn't follow the regular protocol in terms of getting the PS approval, because based on the schedules that we have provided and upon examining the facts, the chairman took it upon himself to make those purchases directly in terms of his airline tickets.
PS?
Just to add to the question in terms of the procedure, what happens typically is that all agencies are required to submit their travel request to the PS for recommendation. That recommendation then goes to the Cabinet Secretary for approval. With respect to the travel of board members and chairmen, those would only be recommended for travel by the PS if the minister signs off on or gives his no objection with respect to that travel. And that is a practice in the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology.
So what you're saying though, Ms. Murray, is that in this case, that did not happen?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. No. Mr.
Chair, just on that.
No, hold on. Is Mr. Stewart finished? Yeah, remember that.
Just on that point, I'll come back to my other points. Just for clarity, what the PS is saying is that the provision already exists for the approval process. That is already established and been in place. What I'm hearing is that in the instant case of the chairman's travels, because it's more than one, that did not occur. Now, when a payment is being made for reimbursement, isn't there an accounting officer in the organization that who prepares payment in keeping with the established protocols, procedures? I think there's a Ministry of Finance Circular 21 and 22 that speaks directly to approval for travel. And I presume that all accounting officers would be bound to abide by that unless otherwise instructed. In the instant case, why the officer did not abide by those instructions?
Because, remember, we were otherwise instructed to pay.
You were otherwise instructed by?
By the general manager. He was the person who actually gave the instructions, delivered the invoices, disbursement vouchers, and matters relating to the chairman expenses.
No, but in terms of the approval requirements, because what I'm understanding the PS to say is that there are certain approvals that have to be obtained. And you say the general manager would have
he would have given instructions for us to pay, and as indicated earlier, in terms of the regular protocol procedures that the acting PS outlined, then those were not followed, or based on our examination of the data, there was no indication of those documents being presented when the payment documents were presented for payments in the accounts.
Yes, bear me a little bit, Chairman. I've been operating in a ministry before myself, and a request would be made. The accounting officer would guide me and say these are the procedures that have to be adhered to. So even when I was a minister traveling, and there has to be cabinet approval, right, for my travel, the officer will say, Minister, I have to get this approval to accompany documentation, because each travel have a package with it. The quotation from the airline, the agenda or what have you for the meeting that I'm going to attend to, and it has to be established that it's a legitimate meeting for which I am going. Those are the basis on which my ticket would be purchased, and the per diem and so forth that accompanies it. What I want to know is if the accounting officer, the one who will be preparing the payment voucher and so forth, who is required to make sure that that file for the payment of that reimbursement in this case, or the payment, what I would like to know, if that officer saw that information and was instructed to ignore it or otherwise. Because I know there is a procedure which the PS is reinforcing. So I just needed to make sure that, you see, why I'm plugging on this, Mr. Chairman, I hear some announcement about some new procedures. I want to know what prevail in the instant case. That's really why I'm asking.
But I heard
if you know, you don't know.
Mike.
I heard the accounting officer say that obviously there was a breach, but she got instructions from the general manager, and on those instructions she has made the payment, and I do not think that she can give any more information than just that.
I tend to agree.
And you can't press her to give what she can't have.
I think the point
she's obviously distressed. She had said it twice.
I just wanted to just clearly establish that. If it wasn't there, it wasn't there. I asked to find out if those information was there or not. That's really what I want to find out.
No, those information were not there, and as I had indicated, the request to pay came upon written instructions and discussions with the general manager.
Okay.
Okay, and the only support was the itinerary from the airline that the chairman purchased his ticket through. So
all right, member,
that's the available information that's
turn
there.
off your mic. You're trying now.
Chairman, the fact that she acted upon instructions, it will be very difficult. But I have another problem. In regards to, we are doing a verbal discussion here now. There is no report before us for us to follow in terms of the questions and answers. Is this going to form part of the answers for next week?
As I said, we're going to get the written report. We had indicated to the GM the areas that he can give information. Say, for example, on a point like this, it may be necessary for the general manager to give further clarity to the situation when he returns. So there are issues that we may go into in detail. The acting GM will give us whatever information he can today. Yeah. All right, just a question. You had indicated that in all your list of trips that the general manager took, the chairman took, were around 25, you said? Approximately.
Approximately.
We'll get that list. But tell me, this process of him purchasing the tickets and being reimbursed, was it only for the London and Brazil trips, or was this the standard practice by this time?
So in answering, Chairman, for clarity, 26 trips, right? So we,
okay.
Right, 26 trips, which started on the 23rd of December 2016. So that reimbursement, the practice around reimbursing the chairman based on the information provided here would have started on the 23rd of December 2016.
So he always purchased his tickets and was reimbursed after?
That's my understanding.
All right.
There's a follow-up.
I have members.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Through you to the PS. Madam PS? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just seeking clarification now to find out whether or not standard procedures have been put in place to reinforce that the issue of travel is done through the ministry. Have you done anything to reinforce that so that persons don't purchase their ticket and seek reimbursement?
Through you, Chair, yes, those circulars would have gone out and regularly go out. Once there are updates, all agency heads are reminded of the travel arrangements. And if amendments are made, as we expect, hearing some of the pronouncements out of the cabinet, then those would be they would be advised of those as well. But it is a regular practice for all circulars from the Ministry of Finance to be circulated to our agencies.
Just for clarity, you're saying that during this, I understood from Mr. Stewart that you were speaking subsequently if you have put in place some things. I'm saying, but your answer would suggest that prior to this, over the last 2 years, that circulars would have gone out, reinforcing to the agencies and departments the proper procedure that should have taken place. So it cannot be said that they did not know what the proper process should have been.
Additionally, Chair, that is correct. Additionally, because the travel request has to come through the PS for recommendation, what the PS's office always does is to have dialogue with the agencies to ensure that whatever they submit is in keeping with the circular. So those are regular discussions that happen with the office of the PS and the agencies who submit their forms for approval to travel.
So, but the PS, the office of the PS must have known that the chairman was coming and going?
No, not in this instance, because we would not have received a travel request.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. A couple of questions regarding the London trip. You indicated that the engagement in London was February 25th through March 2nd, March 1st. the reimbursement that the then chairman sought was for travel for that date?
So in answering your question, member, just for clarity around the information, the original schedule for the visit to London, which is an annual visit to meet with underwriters and insurers for the refinery, that original date or time span would have been February the 18th to the 24th. However, that visit was delayed until the 25th to the 1st of March, right? So that was a substantive trip that should have taken place. In terms
it was delayed because
it was rescheduled.
It was a reschedule. In other words, this is a trip specifically between Petrojam and its reinsurers.
Correct.
So it's an annual thing.
It's an
It's a date that you set, or a date that, or is it around another event, or?
It's a fairly fluid date. It's mutually agreed based on availability.
Right. So it was originally intended to have been earlier.
Correct, Chairman.
From the 18th
to the
24th.
Yes.
But it then was
rescheduled for the 25th of February to the 1st of March.
Uh-huh.
Right? And so the ticket that the chairman had purchased, member, was for the period the 1st of March to the 6th, and again was reimbursed on the 5th.
So you would have paid payment for a meeting after an engagement after the meeting?
That's what the information is showing.
Okay.
No, hold on. That can't make sense. Hold on, back up. You're saying that the meeting was supposed to have been held 18th to 24th?
Originally.
It was rescheduled from the 25th to the 1st.
Correct.
But that the ticket that was purchased by the chairman was from the 1st to
the 6th.
The 6th
of March, correct.
Just after the meeting.
The rest of the team went up for that meeting?
There were 2 other members of that team who went on that particular trip during the period 25th to the 1st.
They went?
Yes, both members went, and one
attended?
Yes, both members, and one member is.
So in other words, everybody knew the meeting was 25th to the 1st?
Absolutely.
So why would someone purchase a ticket from the 1st to the 6th? Maybe a difficult question to answer.
It's an interesting question.
All right.
I agree. Okay. That is one of the things I want to clarify. Mr. Morgan,
yes, sir.
You indicated that the 2 trips so far for which there was no attendance, that claims reimbursement was sought, that London trip and the Brazil trip.
Correct.
Those are the only 2 you're aware of?
In terms of reimbursements, correct. Those are the only 2 based on the information that we have gathered.
On your list of trips,
yes,
was there one for the 3rd of November 2017 to Frankfurt, Germany?
3rd of November. So on the 3rd of November 2017, we're seeing here reimbursement for airfare, travel to Toronto regarding meetings. That's the only information I'm seeing there. Correct, just eyeing down the list, and correct, on it, there is actually a trip to Frankfurt, Germany. Correct, on the 3rd of November 2017.
The chairman saw the reimbursement for that one too?
Based on the information that we have, I'm not seeing any evidence of that, but it's a particular data that we'll have to go back and...
Could you check on that?
Correct.
We'll
do so.
He having sought reimbursement for $4,758.04 US.
Yes. We'll check on that, member.
Okay. And what was the reported purpose of that trip?
Thanks.
Yes, hold on a second. Yes. Just ask one more.
Yes. So just looking further at the information and for clarity, member, and for clarity, all the trips here, all 26 trips were reimbursed.
All of them?
All 26.
So this one would have been one of the reimbursement ones?
Correct.
Two things. You won't have it now, but if you could provide the total of those trips reimbursed.
Okay, we can
do that.
We'll
but in respect
of
the Germany trip, that Frankfurt trip, what was, well, I guess Mr. Grilly not here, but it would have been for the business of Petrojam, correct?
Based on the information here, member, I'm seeing where the attendance would have been to a gas forum in Frankfurt, Germany. So on that basis, it would appear that it would have been associated with the business of the company. I can't say, Chairman. I would have to refer that to the General Manager and have that being a part of our substantive report to be submitted.
Just out of curiosity, when officers take these trips, are they required to submit a report to either to the board or, say, executive members on the outcome of the trips, the issues covered, that sort of thing?
Well, what I can speak to, member, is that we're staff, where we are concerned, management, whenever we travel, either for conferences, training, meetings, that yes, substantively a report must be submitted.
Okay, but that doesn't apply for the chairman, does it?
Can't speak to that directly.
Could you just
would have to check on that with Jim on that.
But specifically on that German trip, what information you have further to confirming, well, on the presumption that he attended. But first of all, to confirm his attendance.
Okay.
And then, if he did attend, what was the...
Sure, we'll follow through duly.
And you have any way of independently verifying attendance?
I believe there might be mechanisms for that, and we'll explore all mechanisms possible to verify.
I'm Chairman.
Oh, no, one other little thing. The chairman has airline membership that is paid for by Petrojam?
I recall scanning the same set of information, member, and I do believe I did spot some information pertaining to that.
500 US?
Just allow me to scan the exhaustive list. 550 to be exact. Correct.
And that was from May 2017?
12th of May 2017.
2017. Okay. Those are permissible expenses by Petrojam?
As far as I'm aware, Chairman, and based on the circular information, I don't believe so. I don't think so.
So if they were paid, they would have to be reimbursed if it is not in keeping with the guidelines. Is that so?
Absolutely, and it was reimbursed based on the information.
It was reimbursed?
Just checking. Yes,
just
reimbursement was
just
done.
For clarity, Member Jackson, for those of us that are not as well informed, could you explain what that is? To the best of your knowledge, the membership in a club?
Sure.
As to the specific airline membership here, I couldn't speak to, but general membership, I would imagine that it gives you certain travel privileges, hospitality, how you're treated by the airline. So that's the indication, I would think, but clarity would have to be given by the general manager.
Okay, one last question, Chair. These 26 travel tickets, what class were they?
So I'm looking at the information, member, and it's not highlighting specifically what class tickets these would be, but from a company perspective, whenever we travel management staff over, I think, 4 to 5 hours, we travel business class.
Over 5 hours?
Yes, business. Over 4 to 5 hours. Right? Business class.
It make up allowance for first class travel?
What's that?
Is any allowance made for first class travel?
For managers, not to my direct knowledge, business class is what is there.
Okay. And in the verification, which you will do from the list, the 26 list, you will indicate which of them, what class, respective class. Okay.
Noted.
Thanks, Chairman.
Noted, member.
Chairman, I just want to be clear because my first question to Mr. Morgan was for him to indicate whether or not it was only 2 trips for which the former chairman did not attend. But I'm hearing him saying that he's not sure. So the question is that you provide us, after you've done your further investigation, with all the trips and the details of the trips, including whether or not the former chairman did show.
Correct. Understood.
All right.
Understood, member.
Just in closing, just for information, you had indicated that London trip. A ticket had been purchased from the 1st to the 6th. That ticket was not utilized either. In other words, the chairman did not go at all.
Correct. That's the information we have. Correct, Chairman.
Okay. All right.
And only because it came up, and I think it's a non-issue, but I'll ask. Good day, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan,
yes, sir.
When your team travels, sometimes they're traveling to destinations. I mean, I've heard mention of Frankfurt, and I've heard mention of South America, etc. I mean, a standard trip, it could take you 24 hours just to fly from Kingston to Miami, layover in Santiago, in Chile to get to, let's say, Brazil, or if you're going to Argentina, and it could take 24 hours.
Indeed.
Yes?
That's correct, and so the practice has been, I mean, any leg that's over 4 hours, then the entire trip
yes,
is
it's the
treated.
same, yes, and it's the same practice for parliamentarians, and I'm sure there are members even right here who've also been overseas to travel to represent Jamaica, and I'm sure that they've also traveled.
And public servants, yes.
Yes, and they all travel business class. So that is standard, is it not? There's nothing alarming about it.
Noted.
I'm not here. Are you saying yes, sir?
I'm saying yes to the extent that any leg of the trip
over the
that
4 hours,
is over 4
it
to
is
5
standard,
hours,
and I'm
it's
indicating the standard even for members
Correct.
even for members right here. My next question now, Mr. Morgan, the paying for an airline benefit, the 500 US. You'll agree with me that if you have, let's say, for example, a 6-hour layover in, let's say, Santiago de Chile, because you're flying to Brazil, if you have a 6-hour layover, rather than and in Petrojam paying, let's say, money for hotel, money for lounge, money for all those things. If you have a 500 US for the year airline benefit, one of those benefits would be to give access to a manager or any one of your staff members, access to, let's say, airline lounge, which would include meals and all those things. Isn't that correct, sir?
So in answering that question, member, where the thinking would be around that. So there are economic benefits, as you would have pointed out, but from a policy perspective, there wouldn't be any ambit to cover that. But there are economies there to be realized, and perhaps that's something to be thought about and considered in terms of going forward.
Yes, because the point I'm making is that it would serve a practical benefit in and of itself.
Pretty much so, and on a personal note, I mean, typically when you travel, any benefits you have, such as membership, you do utilize them on behalf of the company, whilst not being reimbursed. But it's a matter to think about, given the situation at hand.
All right, very well, thank you.
Member Terlong, I think the difficulty we have here is seeing whether or not the public procurement procedures and practices laid down by Parliament and the procurement guidelines is being followed. And I'm just saying that if you feel that the purchase of a airline, what do you call it? Membership, not a lounge membership, airline membership, is something that you should bring to Parliament to convince your colleagues and the executive. No, 1 second, please.
Just trying to see if it served any practical purpose.
No, but I think what our role is to see whether or not procedures have been breached. It is the first that I'm hearing anywhere in government, and I'm sure you, as a minister now, recognize that even you will not be allowed that privilege. And I'm just saying that that is why it is something to bring up. The argument of whether it is beneficial is not one that should be brought to the technical staff. I think what we need to do is to determine whether or not that the procedures and the rules that we laid down are being followed both by ourselves and others.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do agree with you, but also I want to support Member Petrojam, because when we make our report and recommendation from this committee, that would form part of our recommendation going forward.
Well, I submit that may be your recommendation. I do not necessarily feel that I may enjoin myself with you on that. All right, can we move now?
Mr. Chairman, as again, as I indicated, it came up, Mr. Morgan gave an answer, and I sought clarification simply because I know that when agency members travel, they also have an allotment for contingency. There's a contingent allotment. And if every time you're traveling, from a practical perspective of saving fees, if every time you travel, you're given a contingency allotment of, let's say, 500 US or 600 US, whatever, depending on the nature of the trip. And in that contingency, if you're going to be expending agency money to say, well, I had a 12-hour layover, I had an 8-hour layover, and so forth, and I'm just indicating, Mr. Chairman, that there might be a practical purpose, and maybe when the Auditor General report, which we were advised is being prepared, maybe when that report is done, between the HR and all the general managers and everything, they will indicate in that report that, well, certain things happened and this was why, and certain things happened. I mean, outside of that, but within the trips and everything else, these might have been practical. Trips, for example, a general manager or chairperson taking 26 trips, practical person, Mr. Chairman. So I believe that a lot of the questions that we will ask today, it might be prudent or also useful to await that report, because that report would answer a lot of questions instead of asking them to come back after a report is prepared and submitted.
Member Petrojam, just to say to you two things. Number one, I go back to the point that our job is to look at what the procedures are that are in place. But number two, when you do travel business class, you do have access to the lounge. So I don't know if the premise of your discussion, what we have here is something on top of that. What I understood, which is why I sought clarity. I'm not quite certain when you buy membership with an airline, that sounds to me like you're really purchasing additional benefits that allow you some personal benefit. So I don't know what it is, and that's why I think that it is something that we do need to get more clarity on. And now that you have raised it, I do believe that if you could just let us know as part of the information what exactly is purchasing a benefit with an airline. If we could get some clarity as to what it was that was purchased for the chairman.
We'll so do, Chairman. And
can we move to the next? Can we move to the next?
Chairman, just one point. You did raise the point, and we'll have it included in the report. For the overseas travel for the chairman during the period December 2016 to May 2018, that sum and total is $75,290 and 44 cents. $775,290.44 US. And this is over the period December.
70 how much?
75,290 and 44 cents during the period December 2016 to May 2018.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So, Mr. Morgan, so, but the $7 million, $8 million for, excuse me 1 second.
All right. Member, can we?
The
Yes.
chairman is the chairman in question is an executive chairman or just a board chairman?
As far as I understand, is a board chairman.
Not an executive chairman?
Not to my knowledge.
Sorry, back to the original question. So these meetings, you indicated gas conferences, and I mean these are energy related, and no doubt there would have been practical economic benefit to the country, to Petrojam, to the people of Jamaica, by virtue of Petrojam going to these conferences, these trips, meeting with insurers, securing deals and all these things. I mean, isn't there practical benefit in terms of economical, in terms of our energy sector that would have been accrued because of these trips?
Member Terry Long, as far as I know, there are justifications or should be justifications for these trips and the benefits to be derived
It's
from
just
them.
that, Member Terry, I think
Thank
the
you so
difficulty,
much.
I think the difficulty is that without any reports, they're having some difficulty finding out the actual benefits.
And Mr. Chairman, with the greatest of respect, and you've indicated without the benefit of certain reports, and the truth of the matter is that
well be.
the truth of the matter is that one has to approach the trips and the purpose of the trip at first instance that they served useful, practical purpose to the energy sector and to the people of this nation to secure. I mean, energy security is real. You know what I mean? When you go to conferences in Europe and Africa and in America, energy security is real. It is very, very real. And Jamaica has a responsibility to the people to secure our energy and the future of our energy. The point I'm making, Mr. Chairman, is that just using the very same thing you said a while ago, it might be very, very useful to all parties here. The Auditor General having already been, well, conducted an investigation, it might just be it might be premature to have these wonderful young ladies and men here at this point in time. The more practical perspective might be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, await the Auditor General's report, we meet, we go through it, and then we can call them back if needs be. But to have them here in the face of to have in the other committee, etc. But the point is, without the benefit of the report and whatever it might reveal, to have them here, it might not be as practical or as useful.
All right, Member
Chairman, I just want to be clear.
I just want to, because I really do want to move on. I think we are.
But I just want to be clear. You can go online now and you can find any conferences anywhere in the world every week to go to. The reason why there's a process for the permanent secretary to sign off on is to determine the relevance. And really, you don't want your board chairman to be involved in some of these detailed issued questions. You want conferences, you want your online staff who are the implementers to be there. Your policy people ought not to be going to all of these conferences.
Yes, absolutely. All right, no. Yeah. All right, could we move to question number 2?
Okay, Chairman, so for number 2 speaks to the HR manager's qualification and compensation. I have here an information to be submitted to PAC, both the resumes and substantive documents for our current HR manager, Mrs. Yolan Ramharak, and our previous HR manager, Rosalie Marie Scott Heron. In terms of qualifications and just juxtaposing Chairman, I'll speak to the former HR manager first, based on information provided. So summary of qualifications: Masters of Arts, Social and Organization Psychology received in May 2003 from the Columbia University. So this is the previous HR manager.
So she had her master's from Columbia?
From Columbia University, specializing in human resource management, negotiation, and conflict resolution. She also obtained a bachelor in business administration in May 2017 from the University of Technology, specializing in finance, where she received her first-class honors, and College of Arts, Science, and Technology. At the time, she received a diploma in business administration in May 1995, where she specialized in corporate management. There are a list of short courses that were attended, included that of project management, certified occupational safety specialist, strategic planning for organizations.
And her name was Rose Lee?
So Rose Lee.
Oh,
Rose Lee Marie Scott Heron.
Okay.
And also short courses on basic and advanced practicum in negotiations.
Right? And the current.
Okay, for the current HR manager, going through a graduate certificate in business management, and I'm reading from a resume. Graduate certificate in business management from the University of Leicester in 2015, certificate in industrial relations, grievance handling in particular from the Mona School of Business in 2012, so going back in time. Advanced certification in Microsoft Excel in 2012, certificate in project management in 2008, customer service training in 2008, BSc in human resource management received in 2006, an associate degree in business studies in 2004, and a diploma in personnel management and industrial relations. I'm not seeing a year here, but that can be qualified. There have been some professional developments along the way.
No, I'm just trying to find the current person. She has her, I'm really looking at the first and second degrees.
So what I'm looking at here, I am seeing where there is a BSc in Human Resource Management in 2006, and beyond that, certifications along the way up to 2015.
She doesn't have a second degree.
I am not seeing that here on the information.
But she does seem qualified.
I'm not, I wouldn't know.
Sounds so from what we have. She sound, hold on, I'm just saying I'm listening to the list that was just read out, and I have heard all that has been said, and the person holding those qualifications does seem to me to be qualified.
You know, Member Dalrymple, I don't know that any of us here are competent to really go in, but I think that the real issue that we're facing is that given all the discussions that are swirling, that you have someone who has a first degree, who has replaced somebody who has their master's from Columbia, and I don't know how you would...
I can tell you how I would do that. I say so without any apologies. There are people with a lot of degrees, and you put them in an office to function, and they just cannot function as well as a person. If I had before me someone who did not have a degree, did not have certification in certain things, then I would immediately question. But simply because somebody has a second degree over this does not make the person not qualified for the job. I've heard it around in the public domain, and I take objection to that, because paper degrees don't automatically make you the best person for a job.
And that is why we do interviews. Of course.
And I go further. that when you do an interview, there's a lot more that goes into employing somebody other than your paper degree. And if you are in PR, you must have a personality that can blend and can move. So I just want to state very clearly that because somebody in a previous life had 2 or 3 degrees, it doesn't matter. There are many people who graduate with lots of honors degrees. I can tell you, and you put them out in the working world and they can't function. Somebody has less and do very well.
Pierce, can I ask you a question? The civil service, their roster, persons have different gradings. I remember when we were in the ministry, they would have SCG and different things, but there were salary bands associated with it. Are those salary bands still in place based on qualifications?
Chairman, you are correct. There are, certainly within the public service and the central, and I'll say central government, because, and I've qualified because we're speaking about an agency. But certainly within the public sector, central government, there are salary bands attached to each category of, let's say an SEG 1, 2, 3, so on, or 5, 6. And with each post within the organization, and I'll use my ministry for as an example, there is a job description with the minimum qualifications and experience that someone would have to meet to be hired into that position. So that's, I think, is general across certainly the central government.
Chairman, I just want to clarify something. We're talking as if, is the person in this room? Is the person here? Is the person here? And if the person is here and we're talking about her, is it possible for questions to be put to her? Because if she's here, we can't talk as if it's just an empty room and the person doesn't exist. I don't know.
All right, one second. Let me say this. All right, hold on. I have yes. Let me hear, because I'm not certain.
On a point of order, further to my colleague's point.
I'm not certain whether.
Yeah. The issue, the person being here, the issues that come about has to deal with the process leading to the person being in the job. Because I have a set of questions to ask that would require, I want to know what are the organizational requirements, and not so much the incumbent, which I was waiting until Mr. Morgan complete to ask those set of questions. Because it's a process that leads to having the incumbent that we're more concerned about.
And I think it may be invidious. I mean, certainly, I'm willing to allow, but I wouldn't want to submit anybody to. All right, let me just start. I have member Stewart, member Witter. You had asked. You had one? No. Member Stewart and member Jackson. Am I correct? And member Terry.
Thank you very kindly, Chairman. My question has to do, or to the PS. What brought about the replacement of Mrs. Rosalie Marie Scott? Was it that she was not performing? Was she an inefficient person? Was it due to insubordination, unpunctuality? What led to her dismissal from the abrupt dismissal from that great organization, the PCJ?
Through you, Chair, to the member, unfortunately, the ministry would be unable to speak to that. That hiring, dismissal, etc., is totally in the sphere of the organization. So the ministry could not speak to and or answer those questions.
And I please.
Is there anyone who could answer that question?
Member Stewart, I would say this. My understanding is that this is before
the tribunal. That's correct, Chairman.
No,
it's well advanced.
But I think the general question is, I think the general question is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it is the employee who has taken the matter to the IDT rather than the company, which would indicate that the complaint is more from the employee's perspective than the company. So I would suggest you can elaborate on that, but I don't think, I wouldn't want to put you in a position to prejudice any of your discussions.
Thank you, Chairman. And in responding to the members' question around that, the matter concerning Ms. Rosalie Marie Scott Heron, there is a claim which is now in front of the IDT, I understand, well advanced, and it's a claim of unfair dismissal.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan, I'm sorry. Yes. Mr. Chairman, I hate to interject. From a legal perspective, Mr. Chairman, the very fact that this matter is before the IDT, the very fact that negotiations are advanced, etc., then, Mr. Chairman, with the grace of respect, I don't think that anything in relation to that matter should be discussed, certainly not at this point in time, Mr. Chairman. Negotiations, as persons are well aware, can be sensitive, etc. Things that might be said in here might serve to set back. I don't think we should go down that road from a strict legal perspective. It is now subject.
Member Terlong, I tend to want to take the advice of lawyers most of the time. I don't know if it is a general consensus of the legal fraternity in here. I would not. I would.
And I used to provide excellent counsel to young Michael Phillips as well. So yes, so he'll tell you that is good counsel. Before he fired me for being JLP.
And I take it he's not in prison, so.
But he fired me for being JLP. That's the only reason why I was this, because I was JLP. Because I was JLP. I was victimized by Michael Phillips. Victimized. After setting up his company and treating him so fairly, I was victimized by Michael Phillips.
All right. Members, I think the general manager, the acting general manager has indicated something. I think we'd be comfortable leaving it there. We can leave it there. All right. So, no. 1 second, sure. Member Jackson. So that was in response to Member Stewart. I'm now indicating you can.
I'm more concerned about some procedural.
Yeah. So move on. Yeah, but go to your series of questions. Absolutely.
I yield to that concern. When did the incumbent assume office?
Is February 13, 17.
That's a month ago.
So
February
13, 2017.
2017. Yes. What point? This 2017, right?
Correct.
What was the salary scale for the HR manager during the period of February 2017? What was the effective salary scale at that time?
At that time. I am looking through the information, member. I am not seeing that information right now, but that information can be provided. I believe Mr. Grinley spoke to it the last time.
No,
but
he referred to the one subsequently. But
yes, and something was brought to Parliament, I think.
Yes, I'm coming to
remember
the exact number myself. So you can't say what the prevailing salary scale is. No, that's the new one. I want to know when that new scale, Mr. Last meeting, the scale was something of 9 point something to 12 point something.
No.
But I want to know when that scale effectively came in.
I think Member Jackson, what there is, I'm following you. Yeah, sorry.
That scale that was referred to the last meeting, that starts at 9 point something to 12 point something. When did that scale came in effect?
I would have to revert to my HR manager. Any information on that, Yolande?
I presume that was approved by Minister of Finance, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, I'm not sure if Mr. Morgan would prefer for Miss Rambarang to indicate that, since she is in fact before us.
Please.
Through you,
Welcome.
Chair. Yes, thank you.
Could you just introduce yourself for...
Thank you. Yolanda Ramharak, current Human Resource Development and Administration Manager at Petrojam.
Yes, go ahead. I think you wanted to.
So to support the response, the compensation, basic, M1 category as it affects all managers at Petrojam, 6 to 9 million is the basic. 6 to 9 million.
6 to 9?
Yes, that's the range for the basic salary.
Basic salary?
Yes. So you referred 12 million compensation.
No, please. This 6 to 9, this is the scale for the basic.
That's
or
the range.
Total range.
6 to 9 million. That's the salary range. That's the band
for the HR manager.
For basic, not just for the HR manager, but for all managers.
I'm only concentrating on the HR for now. Yeah. No, I'm only concentrating on the HR for now. Yeah. 6 to 9 basic for the HR manager. That's the current scale, effective as of when?
That was in effect from 2016.
From 2016?
Yes, sir. And we can support that.
True to current?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I feel I'll ask you and ask, well, you're representing the organization. When you came in February 2017, where you started on that scale?
The salary scale, it would have been at the low level, 6.9 thereabouts, but I can check my compensation.
6 point plus
6 point.
Yeah, that's where you started in,
yes.
in February 2017?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you would have moved from, and this is the basic, it doesn't include, roughly what the total is?
So when you put all the benefits, savings, and all the other components to it, then the total compensation would be 12 million.
No, the starting one. The 6 to 9, you said, was the basic.
Yes.
Load it up with the benefits. What range do you have?
So you would roughly be anywhere between 10 to 12.
So it would be 10 to 12.
Total compensation.
With the benefits?
Yes.
At the bottom, 10 to 12, 12 at the top with the benefit. So that you would have started at 10.
You
would have started at 10 in 2017.
Roughly, yes, sir.
And then you would have moved to 12 in 2018. Okay. That's what I wanted to ascertain.
And Mr. Chairman? Yes, and so there you indicated that the 6 to 9 range was for all managers at the M1 level.
M1 level. So currently all Petrojam managers are categorized in the M1 level.
Okay, so all Petrojam managers, all right, and in your capacity as HR, you are a manager. So there is no distinction then in terms of your scale and another manager from another department, etc. This is a scale for all managers at Petrojam, M1.
You're correct.
Thank you so much. And all managers at Petrojam, in addition to the basic scale of, let's say, 6 to 9, all managers are entitled to benefits and savings, perks, and so forth that would take their salary beyond the 6 to 9 to the realm of, let's say, 9 to 12.
Correct. So let me just put a little bit more meat to that.
Thank you.
So the allowances and other benefits would definitely take you to a total compensation anywhere between 10 to 12 million. And we do have some individuals who are over 12, maybe because of length of service and all of that, which would be taken into consideration.
Thank you so much. And finally, there are competing firms or other organizations in Jamaica that actually pay their managers more than the 6 to 9 bandwidth. Isn't that correct? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You are correct, member.
I
just wanted to add a little bit more clarity to that.
Certainly, we like...
What what is of interest also in...
I've never met her before, Mr. Jackson. I didn't even know who she was. I merely asked the manager, and Mr. Morgan, who indicated that. I'm just making that very clear. Yes, Miss Bammarang.
Just Ramharak. Just for further clarity.
Rambarang, sorry, I don't even know her name. Sorry, yes, Miss Rambarang.
For further clarity, as was mentioned before, that a hiring decision does in fact not only include qualifications and experience, it also is also impinged on competences.
Yes.
And so...
And I must say, just from this bit of exchange, you seem to me to be a people person. You seem to be very confident. I mean, you seem to have all the attributes of an HR person that I certainly would employ in my office and my organization. The confidence, the competence, the personability, interrelatability that HR managers need, I can see that shining through. Yes, ma'am, continue.
Thank you for that. But in the context... In the context of Petrojam, where we align all that we do to our best-in-class mission and vision, the hiring decision for my position included someone who would be an employee champion, would possess business acumen, culture, and a strategic positioner. All of those that I did demonstrate the ability to execute on, and engagement as well.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, so you indicated that there are other companies in Jamaica that are paying more than Petrojam is paying. And can you indicate whether or not and so from time to time, persons actually leave Petrojam to go to some of these companies because they're better paid in some of these companies. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes, it is correct, and we are aware of those challenges in terms of the attrition that we currently face at Petrojam. However, what we are desirous of implementing as we go forward is a structured program, which is something designed for talent, where we give persons the opportunity to develop in other areas and so compensate. We don't have a compensation strategy right now, but that's something that we're working on as well.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, yesterday the minister indicated that there was, in terms of some employer-employee ratio moving from 40 to 60. Could you just shed some light on that for me, please?
I believe, yes, you are correct. I did understand that the minister spoke to that yesterday. So Petrojam has their engagement scores before I came on board, which was in the low 40s.
Tragic.
Yes, it's true. Yes. What we have been doing now are initiatives to raise the engagement levels.
Raising engagement levels now, yes. Mm-hmm. Purposeful collaboration, yes.
Yes, sir, and engagement of the entire workforce.
Of the entire workforce. And thank you so much. This would increase employee morale and those things, yes? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a little clarification here. Just a little clarification. Mr. Morgan, the previous HR manager, as at December 2016, salary was 9.5. Correct?
Turn off your mic, your mic. Turn it off.
Turn it off. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, member, just for some clarity, the previous HR manager, Marie Scott Heron, her gross salary before traveling allowances added was at the time 8.48 million. Upon adding traveling allowance, which is a benefit, her salary would have been 9.82 million.
9.82.
Correct.
So she would have left with an overall of 9.8.
9.82 million.
9.82, yeah.
Correct.
And then her successor would have started at 10.
So, based on the information I have, I don't have the initial start, but we're current.
No, based on the numbers Ms. Incumbent gave, I don't want to mispronounce the name. It started in 2017. February, which is 2 months after that incumbent was removed. Right? No, I just want I just some numbers here. So 2 months after, the starting salary for the successor was $10 million, which is at the height of the previous one. And 1 year later, between February 2017 and when did the $12 million effort to commence? It says currently is 12.6. When that 12.6 commenced?
So in answering that, I don't have the specific detail, but it can be provided. But where current salary is at based on the information I have. So this is subtotal basic pay and some allowances. That would be 11.69 million. When traveling allowance is added, that rounds off to be 13.04 million.
13.04?
Correct.
When did that 13.04 commence?
Off the bat and the information that I would have had, that would have been dated back to 2017.
So 2017?
Yes.
So the incumbent came in February 2017?
Correct.
And you're saying that the 1304 would have gone back into then?
Based on the information I have, there was a salary change during 2017.
About when in 2017?
I think perhaps a month or two after the start date.
After the start?
Correct.
So she would have come in at 10 and then it jumped to 13 in a month or two?
That's what the information is showing.
Okay. Is it normal, Mr. Morgan, for these salary shifts in Petrojam?
It's a matter that...
Given your long duration in the
organization. Generally, typically how the system works is that once you enter a band, you typically, and I say typically, enter at the bottom and you work your way up through merit increases year on year based on your performance appraisal. Now, there are times when certain adjustments may need to be made based on experiences, the level at which you are coming in at, and there are considerations around those.
So within 2 months, no, that's a clarification. Within 2 months, this adjustment was made from 10 to 13.
Yes.
Within 2 months of commencement.
No, I didn't hear that, member.
No, the adjustment up to the 1304 that came about, that change jumped from the 10 million to 13, took place in 2 months.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, member.
Was there any job evaluation and all of that exercise?
That information I don't have. That would have to be a part of our information collection, and I would have to consult with Mr. Grindley.
And could you provide that for us too? What's the process? Another question I have to ask about that, Mr.
Just a point, though, member. Mr. Grindley did mention and gave an explanation the last time as to that shift in salary. And he did mention in terms of IR competency, so that did came into play earlier in terms of the previous meeting.
Yeah, I remember that.
Correct.
A question. In December 2016, when Ms. Scott Aaron was removed, now you have a vacancy. What was the process of filling that vacancy?
So typically what would happen...
No, what happened in this case?
So this particular case, the fullness of the information, again, that knowledge resides with Mr. Grindley, but my recollection would be, from a management perspective, would that a request from the ministry would have to be made in terms of getting their approval to fill the vacancy. And certainly the job would be advertised, a process of application, interviews, and selection and installation.
So if I follow you correctly now, Mr. Watson, between the 20, Mr. Morgan, sorry, no. Unless it's a point of order, I'm seeking some clarification.
No,
because
hold on,
in
member,
December.
Hold on 1 second, Member Jackson. Can I understand what is the problem? I'm not understanding. What you saying? No,
they were not.
No,
they were asked, but they never answered.
Please,
they were
with
asked,
due
but
respect,
they never answered.
Member Dalrymple, please, no, 1 second. Member, no, please, just 1 second. Member, each member here, I give them the opportunity to ask their questions. And each one, when the questions are being asked, go on at length and discuss what they want to discuss. But there's always a concern that everybody else is talking too long. And I would suggest that if we could just let each member, I'm sure Member Jackson will soon finish, we will move more quickly ahead.
Letter was sent to say that the general manager would not be here today. There is the opening of CARICOM where a lot of our members are gone to. And on top of all of that, the acting general manager is not able to answer all the questions that are being put at him. There are other things that can go. The portfolio ministry has been transferred. So I'm just wondering, so it's not about the length of question. I came in a little late and I noticed that this was going on, but I'm just saying, based on the fact that we did get a letter yesterday that the general manager is not going to be here, the portfolio has been transferred, the acting general manager does not have all the answers in his thing. The investigating agencies, their computers have been seized. Why are we going all this time down here?
I had indicated if we need more information after, we can recall them. But what we're doing here is seeking clarity where it is, and certainly I'll do everything possible to protect the public servants in what they're doing. But please, I think what we're doing is spending a lot of time working, just talking about procedure. I think Member Jackson's questions are absolutely appropriate. He's simply asking the system that was followed. The acting general manager, as well as somebody who has been in the organization for years, and other members of staff. So I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination that he's bowling outside of so please, no. So Member Jackson, please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the protection. I think I need further protection here. Mr. Morgan, just trying to follow the process. You said that between December 2016 and February, normally what would happen to fill a vacancy is that you have the approval from the ministry,
correct,
advertising, and so on. Indeed. You cannot say now whether or not those processes were adhered to, because it's a very short window, you know. It's about December 2016, so the year would have ended. So it's within 2 months that the position would have been filled. So normally these senior positions are filled in that short window?
Well,
normally what obtained in your organization?
So, I mean, it depends, and the process is not necessarily a perfect one. Sometimes you do have very expeditious responses to requests, and sometimes they are not taken on with the sort of alacrity that's required. In this particular case, it would want to seem that the steps were followed. But again, the information that we need to gather to substantiate the question, we're prepared to do that.
Just you know, my thing. Normally, there's an emergency, somebody die, for example, or to suddenly depart from the organization, you fill the vacancy temporarily from within, right, until the processes are gone through. But it struck me that the former one was suddenly terminated on the eve of Christmas, and within 2 months, a replacement from outside the organization occurred. So I'm just curious as to why, if there was some exigencies of human resource management, this is not a technical industrial engineer that have to deal with operational safety of the industrial plant. This is an HR manager with position, with support staff in the department. Because it's not a one-man shop. Absolutely. It is. You have competencies at varied levels. Is it unusual that within the former one was suddenly terminated, and within 2 months, an outside recruitment person was recruited and put in the position? Just share is that the culture of the organization?
I mean, certainly. So in responding to your question and comments in between, member, so during that period when the vacancy existed, the general manager was the de facto HR manager at the time. So the general manager
was the de facto.
Took up the role of HR manager, thrown it. In a sense, giving oversight, in a sense. The leadership of a position like that, I would imagine you would want to ensure that you have all the exigencies to ensure that positions are filled. In fact, any position for that matter, you want to ensure that you have it filled in a timely manner. So I don't think this would be any different. But
you will verify whether or not those procedures were followed. One last question I have in that regard. Below the HR manager, what's the next rank person in that HR department?
My recollection would be a HR officer, Yolanda? Yeah, HR officer.
With the competencies to act?
Certain competencies. Perhaps not the full gamut, but certainly in an interim way.
Okay, but in this case it was done by the general manager?
That's what happened for the bulk of the period, but certainly the HR officer would have filled in occasionally around that.
That's for now.
No.
Member. Sure.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you to Mr. Morgan. While I do not have a copy of the job description of the HR manager, I would believe that part of her role and responsibility would be to inspire confidence, to have a very motivated staff. We are seeing where there has been a high attrition, low staff morale. You have had to get in a counselor at the organization. Why is it so? If you have a highly paid HR manager who should be taking on those responsibilities.
Okay. So the question is noted, member. In fact, that's a new dispensation for the organization, as I understand, in terms of a counselor. As to the utilization of those services, I would have to refer to our HR manager to perhaps elaborate on those. But it's a new domain dispensation for us.
No. I'm not sure it is on.
Yes, as part of the Health and Wellness Committee that you have brought into bear, depression, let's talk. You seem to have a very high staff suffering from, high level of staff suffering from depression there.
Distracted member. Could you repeat that for me, please?
Yes, I'm seeing where you would have contracted one Reverend Angela Grant to be dealing with a high level of depression among your staff members. And that would impact on the morale of the entire staff. And can we get some explanation there? You have a very highly paid HR manager.
I would have to defer that one to the HR manager member. Mr. Amara, can you assist with this?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes. So you make reference to the fact that we do have a counselor, on-site counselor, supporting our wellness strategy. So prior to me getting there at Petrojam, there have been reports from the team members that have been suffering from bouts of depression based on what has been happening at the organization. So our formal wellness strategy, which has been implemented since the start of this year, also includes the assistance with the EAP, Employee Assistance Program, that we do have with a counselor. Yes, and we are measuring those interventions as we speak. So not that Petrojam was not doing something, but it was not a structured process. And so we now have a formal wellness strategy.
Say that this is a recent phenomenon. How long have you detected this high level of depression among the staff members?
From data that we have at Petrojam, and from engagement with the other team members, we have had cases of missing employees to date, which we have not had a closure. And so we thought it prudent as a management team to give the support because of the 24-hour essential services that the business dictates. There are persons who cannot avail themselves of the EAP. And so best practice dictates that if we are to realize any benefits from a formal wellness strategy, of course, it must be supported by the spiritual aspect of it as well.
Would you be able to speak to the high attrition rate we had in 2016? We had 20 staff members leaving. Such a very vital organization.
Okay, member. I will also speak to data since I've been on board. And the 20 that you spoke to in 2016, our feedback was that the organization, when there's an administration change, then we see the exiting of persons, which of course we can't have persons not going, but what we try to do since I have been on board is that we have engaged persons, not waiting for an exit interview, but we have been engaging the staff to find out what it is that they're desirous of accomplishing. And so everybody right now, we are at the cusp, once this noise is settled, that we have persons who have a formal individual development plan to begin with, which will serve as an indicator to raise the morale. We have persons who have indicated that they are looking outside of Petrojam because we cannot make any movement outside of the salary range as dictated by the Ministry of Finance.
Finally, do you normally have an exit interview with those persons who are leaving?
I can confirm that Petrojam, before I got there, February 13, 2017, did not conduct exit interviews, but rather persons were given the form to complete and drop off at the HRD department. Now, best practice dictates that anytime there is a departure of staff, that the interview is conducted. And conducted, I mean that there's a one-on-one engagement, and those responses are documented and passed to the relevant channels, fed up, so that we can realize and put initiatives in place to correct those.
All right, I have Member Campbell.
Thank you, Chairman. May I just ask Mr. Morgan, do you have any knowledge as to what obtained in the HR department in relation to an IR consultant that is prior to February 2017? Was there an IR consultant who was employed in that department?
So, member, in responding to your question, I think a similar question was posed last time, and consistent with that response, yes, IR consultant was on board on a 2-year contract. I'm looking for the value of the contract. I believe it would have been between 5 and 6 million. At the time, over a 2-year period.
Very well. And let me follow that. Post February 2017, have you retained that IR consultant? Okay, you had a situation which obtained prior to February 2017. You had an IR consultant. You were paying that person $5 million a year.
Over 2 years. Over 2 years.
So the net position is 2.75 or thereabouts per year?
If you look at it in an average sense.
Right. And what is the position, after February 2017?
The contract would have had an expiry date. I believe the contract expired shortly thereafter, in 2000 and I think
yes,
17.
After the expiration of that contract, have you hired a new person or entered into a new relationship with that person?
My understanding that once the contract came to an end, there was no re-engagement of this particular individual. Right?
What factors assisted you in determining that you did not need an IR consultant after the expiration of that one?
That's a very good question, member, but it's one that would have to be posed to Mr. Grinley, who would have been very integral.
Would I be far wrong if I were to suggest that the competencies which now reside with the present HR manager is the major factor which has guided you in making that determination?
So guided the decision perhaps at the time, and as responded by Mr. Grinley the last time, that was a key factor in the decision-making process and how the handling of that was done.
On the last occasion you were here, I asked, I'm claiming my time back. I'm claiming my time back. On the last occasion when the team attended with us, I asked a question in relation to the transfer of the shares at Petrojam. The Jamaican government holds 51% of the shares. And I'll ask again, what has been done to effectively transfer those shares to the Accountant General of Jamaica between then and now? Because the obligation under the law arose in 2006. And I'm asking you, I asked a question on the last occasion you were here. What has been done to effectively transfer those shares to the Accountant General of Jamaica?
I can take that question, member. The subsequent to our discussion from the last meeting, and even prior to then, I spoke to the corporate sector to ensure that matter was dealt with for not just Petrojam, but all the subsidiaries, because we have similar issues with Wigton, and at the time it would have been PEL, Petrojam Ethanol. So the matter is being dealt with.
So aside from Petrojam, you have JARS and PEL and all those entities where the shares reside with PCJ. Is that in breach of the law?
I couldn't answer that.
Well, I'd like some clarification on that issue, because we're here complaining about all kinds of breaches, and I want for us to be very clear that what we are presiding over is not an entity which has consistently breached the laws of Jamaica. So I'd like some clarification today as to whether we are continuing with those set of breaches.
Maybe I think, Joaquim, you can respond.
In response to your question, member, yes, the Crown Proceeding and Vesting Act requires or instructs that all shares are to be held, or in fact property generally, are to be held by the Accountant General. And this is the Accountant General's move to ensure compliance is not specific at all to Petrojam. There are other agencies across government, and steps are being taken to ensure
Madam
that
PS,
those are...
Madam PS, this requirement, did this requirement arise consequent upon our entering into the agreement with PDV Caribe? Were we to have effected this change at the time when we entered into the agreement with the Venezuelans? Was that part of that was that part of the agreement?
My understanding, member, is that no, that was not what was required.
It was not agreed.
I might just add, member, that prior to the changes to the Companies Act in 2004, no one member could hold all the shares in a company. Just to add that point.
Very well. And let me move on from there. If you were to comply with the Act, those shares being held by the Accountant General, it is then the Accountant General who would effectively have the power to nominate or to name the members of the board of directors of this entity.
No, it's a state.
That might not necessarily be so. You would really have to look to the articles of incorporation or the articles of association of each entity to determine who is responsible for appointing members of the board.
Well, let me go on further. What does your article say, the articles for Petrojam? What does it say? Who has the power to appoint the board of directors?
Fortunately, member, I can't speak to what the Articles of Association says with respect to Petrojam specifically, but there is a joint venture agreement between PDVSA and PCJ, which stipulates how members are appointed to the board.
All right. And have you been complying faithfully with those obligations?
As far as I'm aware, yes, there are 3 members from Venezuelan members and currently now 3 Jamaican members.
Right. And what does it say in relation to the situation which has arisen in this case, where there's failure to act on the part of the Venezuelans? They have failed to attend the meetings which have been organized by the corporate secretary.
Unfortunately, member, without sight of what the joint venture agreement says and or their articles, I won't be able to respond to that specific question. But we will undertake to look at it and then respond.
There is this, what I'd consider an untidy operation. That you have those shares presently residing with Petrojam, by PC. The shares in Petrojam are held by PCJ. As the entity declared any kind of dividends from the date of, well, the joint venture agreement, has yes?
Member, I'm going to yield to Mr. Watson as he takes his seat. You may have to repeat the question for him.
Since we've had the joint venture agreement, what I want to find out is if the entity has declared a dividend.
No, they haven't. Not Petrojam anyway.
Petrojam has not declared a dividend. What is the net benefit to Jamaica of having a continued relationship, continuing to hold the shares? What's the benefit to Jamaica? Of having, or let me find out, what was the initial investment in Petrojam? By the Jamaican government. That's what I'm concerned about. What was the initial investment?
Excuse me, member, just for clarification. Apparently, I wasn't there, but there was a dividend declared in 2015 of $10 million and was paid to the Venezuelans. To the Venezuelans.
And I suppose you had similar ranking. Jamaica got $10 million.
US.
Yes.
It's $10 million. Right. 10 million US was paid to PDVSA.
To PDVSA. And I suppose you had a corresponding sum which was paid to PCJ.
There is a corresponding sum that is recorded to go to the other shareholder, yes.
It is recorded but not paid.
Sorry, it hasn't been paid yet. But it's part of our receivables with Petrojam.
So, and when was this declaration made?
You mean the dividend?
Yes.
No, I'm saying it was 2015.
2015. So since then,
right?
It's not the entity has not found itself in a position to make the payment.
PCJ have not been paid their portion of it.
And hence,
but it has been carried as a receivable.
And why is this so?
I couldn't answer that. Remember, I'm not at Petrojam, so I'm not sure why.
Yes, well, let me go to Mr. Morgan then. Can you say why?
Sorry, member. Carlene is here, and she is probably
is the Secretary Treasurer, I think, or whatever it is. Yes, Treasurer of Petrojam.
As it relates to the dividend payment to the other shareholder, the PCJ, there's currently an arrangement in place. We do have a dividend conversion loan, which is active right now between PCJ and Petrojam. So there's a formal arrangement in place now that is active that we are honoring. It's a 10-year
loan. I'm sorry. So, what the dividend has been converted to a debt?
Yes, sir. Yes, member.
What is the rate of interest payable on that date, on that debt?
Okay, well, unfortunately, I'm not in the seat that actually handles that. So in terms of the specific terms and conditions for that arrangement, then we'd have to come back with that information to clarify that. I don't know if the CFO from PCJ is okay with those terms and conditions.
Good day, members. Robert Clark, PCJ.
Just repeat that, please, sir.
Robert Clark. Yes. I am the Group Chief Financial Officer at PCJ. Okay. The overall dividend was about 22 million that was declared, 10.4 for PCJ. That was converted to a 4-year loan at 3.5%. And to date, 1.2 million, rough in my head, has been paid down based on the scheduled payment. So they are actually current in the pay down.
Let me ask, what is it that guides, because in my mind, Petrojam is a very profitable entity. What guides it in making a determination that it would convert a dividend payment to debt?
That sounds like
I'm not sure if I can answer the question the way you have asked it, but with the, remember that there was a dividend policy developed by Petrojam to be approved by the Board of Directors. And coming out of that, there was some back and forth with PDVSA directors and the Jamaican directors. So that has not been formally, as far as I recall, approved by the board. But typically, dividend payments are determined with the board of directors saying, yes, we can afford to pay dividends. What we had said at the time with PDVSA is that we wanted to retain that earnings for the purpose of the refinery upgrade. And so that was a part of the back and forth, because Jamaica had one purpose and PDVSA pretty much said, well, we think we should get a dividend. And so that created some of the discrepancy there.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, because the board, having made a decision that it would make a dividend payment, it then splits the decision that it would pay to one shareholder actual cash. And I'd like to have the benefit of that decision that the board made when it decided it would pay cash to one shareholder and to convert the other payment to debt, because that seems sort of an unequal arrangement. And then if your explanation is that the Jamaican shareholder says, I want to retain the benefit of that $10.4 million for the entire operation, I would also like to see the benefit of that, the collective decision which was made. Because one shareholder can't decide that he is going to leave his $10.4 million in there and have it for the benefit. That has to be for the benefit of the entire operation. I'd want to see that decision which was made, because to determine whether or not we're in compliance and the entity has been run in accordance with the law. Because I hear you say, Mr. Watson, that you have set aside this $10.4 million which was supposed to go to PCJ for the benefit of doing the upgrade.
That's what I said, was that the Jamaican directors were of the view that we should not pay a dividend. We should retain the earnings for the refinery upgrade, not just the $10 million for PCJ, but in general, all dividends. But in 2015, the board decided that they would pay a dividend. PCJ's dividend was converted to a loan. I can't remember. I was not at Petrojam at the time. I can't remember why. I'm sure we can find the information. But so PDVSA got $10 million. It was approved by Ministry of Finance, everybody. And PCJ's $10 million, or 10 point something, was converted to a loan. So it is still recognized as a dividend to PCJ. It's just how PCJ determined they would get the money, whether they take it immediately as a check or whether they convert it to a loan over time before they get the money. But both shareholders would have received their dividend. Both shareholders. It's just how each treated the money.
Right. In relation to, thanks for the explanation. Let me now go back to the issue involving the HR manager. Is there a committee, HR committee within the structure? I mean, from the board and perhaps a senior member of staff, which would have guided the process to come into making the determination as to who would get the position as the HR manager.
So, member, where that is concerned, my understanding is that there is a subcommittee of the board
Yes.
I can't speak to the specifics as to what transpired at the time, but again, that's another set of information that we're prepared to look into, prepare, and submit to PAC.
Meryl, thank you.
Thank you for your brief intervention. Just for the record, I just put it out there. You know. No, it doesn't.
I believe I have the floor next, Mr. Chairman.
Just a procedural thing. In my question to Mr. Morgan, when I'd asked you about the process of filling the HR position, I recall you saying what normally happens, but you have to check.
Yes.
The incumbent is here again. I don't want to mispronounce the word, but it just dawned on me that it was within 45 days, roughly, that position was filled. The previous person left on the eve of Christmas, and the incumbent assumed office the 13th of February.
Correct.
So all the processes would have to have gone through include within that roughly 45 days. So the incumbent is here just curious to know, how did she know about the job? Was it a newspaper advertisement?
Through you, Chair. Member, yes.
Yes.
I responded to an advertisement in the newspaper.
Roughly about when?
I believe my response letter for the application, I believe Mr. Morgan has it, and it would be sometime the first week in January. I think early January.
First week in January?
Yes, I can't recall the exact date, but it is mentioned on my application.
So you would have to find out from Mr. Morgan if she responded the first week in January, therefore the advertisement would have went out in Christmas. There's 1 week between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah, 2 minutes max.
Yes, again, and forgive us for this, I mean, these are some details that would have to drill down into, but that would seem to be a very short time. Short time.
Very unusually short.
Short, member. Short time.
The application letter came in the first week of January, and the previous person was removed on Christmas Eve.
Not on Christmas Eve. The 16th of December, I believe, was the date that was indicated.
Okay. No, I just want to be clear. But you will verify for me when the newspaper ad went. I want to know how many persons in the newspaper ad, what was the duration for response. Usually these advertisements give a timeline for response, and your processing of applicants would be after the closure. Is that correct?
And that would be according to procedure.
Which would be shortlisting and then interviews and so on?
Absolutely.
Okay. But this one was replied to in 1 week. Well, I mean, within a week.
I'd have to validate that information and what transpired.
Do you know of any other applications at the time?
I'm not close to the details. I'm not close to the details, member, and therefore, as requested, Chairman, we will provide the details as requested.
And in that detail, I would like the number of persons who were interviewed from the shortlist and the persons who were on the interview panel.
No, noted.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, with respect, Mr. Chairman, I was next in line, Mr. Chairman. The member indicated, no, Mr. Chairman, I was next in line. The member indicated one question, Mr. Chairman. The member has now had for 15 more minutes, Mr. Chairman. 15 more minutes, Mr. Chairman. I was next, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, every member has the right to speak and to be heard, Mr. Chairman. I was next in the queue. I am not disrespectful. I do not break the queue, Mr. Chairman. I wish to be acknowledged, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Terlang, you know, I don't know why you feel the need that this is not a contentious issue, and You know, hold on, you have had a long session before, and I'm sure you'll have a long one after. I have no problem with it. And you have all the time that you want. So please, Mr. Terlang.
So Mr. Chair, might I go ahead now?
No.
You wish, okay,
please wait, Mr. Terlang. I'm just saying, please, let us, calm down a little bit and let us. All right, please, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, with the grace of respect, Mr. Chairman, this smile suggests I'm very calm. I'm extremely calm. There's nothing happening here to get me frustrated, other than the fact that, Mr. Chairman, as I indicated for the record, I was next in the queue. I was overlooked on the basis that the member indicated one question. The member went on for 15 minutes, Mr. Chairman. I find that I have a difficulty with that. If I'm next in the queue, I'm next in the queue, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Watson. I have one question for Mr. Watson, one question for Mr. Morgan. If Mr. Morgan is not able to answer the question, then perhaps Madam HR can answer that question. The question for Mr. Watson. Mr. Watson, you made a statement as it relates to the certain expertise residing in PCJ having to deal with financial assessment, some sort of financial consulting, etc. Can you clarify that statement for me, please? Could you clarify that statement for me?
Well, I was asked if PCJ has the expertise to carry out the work. Is that?
Yes. Yes. If you could just
and I'd said
clarify
yes.
that. You said what?
At the time, I'd said yes. We have the expertise to carry out the work.
Mm-hmm. All right. Just checking on that. And then, as it relates to one of the members indicated this morning, Mr. Morgan, about persons leaving PCJ, and the member was indicating that it was because of the environment, and it's because members. Petrojam. It was because of the environment, and because members were this and members were that, trying to give a particular impression. But from the information I have before me, isn't it true that the vast majority of persons who left Petrojam left either one because they migrated, or two because they were employed elsewhere that was paying them better?
The substantive details of that I'd ask our HR manager to respond to. But I believe she did mention earlier that, through exit interviews, persons would have left for various reasons, and those specific reasons I would have to defer to her.
Well, then in that case, I'll ask Madam HR. So, Madam HR, am I correct in saying that the vast majority of persons would have left Petrojam because, one, either they migrated, or two, because they got better employment elsewhere? In terms of, from a financial perspective?
You are indeed correct, member.
All right, thank you. And am I also correct, Madam HR, that, could you repeat the answer for the benefit of the member to my left?
Yes, the statistics do indicate that the numbers were high in 2016.
Because of the migrated or employment elsewhere?
Either migration or compensation, which we still face.
All right, thank you. And we've already discussed that the compensation packages could have been better in other places. And finally,
Just to add to that, I don't remember specifically which year, if it's 2016 or 17, but we did have an unusual competition in the market, which we did have some staff members move into particular entities. So just for note, I'm just highlighting that.
Yes, thank you. Because what I have before me is that in the last period, 2017, of the 20 persons who left the organization, I'm seeing here that more than 14 left due to reasons because either they migrated or getting a better salary. And in fact, my indication showed that only one person was dismissed. Is that your indication as well?
You're correct, member.
I'm sorry, a little louder.
You are correct, member.
Thank you so much.
Gives me a chance. One bit of information, Mr. Morgan, I want to provide is the job description of the HR position in that, presume your advertisement went on or whatever, circular. Job description and qualification. that was put in the ad.
We have taken note of that, member, and we will provide the information. Again, just for clarity, I believe a member had asked about what transpired with the contract of the previous IR manager. I did mention that the contract came to an end, but just for clarity, we do have legal services, IR practitioner legal services that currently exist. Just for clarity.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just to indicate also that my calculation from the 16th of December to the 13th of February, I'm getting approximately 59 days. And not 45. And if an ad is placed in the paper, Mr. Chairman, and persons respond, well then, kudos to them if they respond.
No, repeat what you just said.
From the 16th of December to the 13th of February, I'm getting approximately 58, 59 days, and not 45 days, as was indicated by the member to my left. And Mr. Chairman, if persons respond to an ad in the paper and they do an interview and they're successful, well, kudos to them. I wish more persons would respond to ads in the paper.
No, that's not what I understood, though. All right, yeah. All right, I'm going to move on, but just add to the questions, and just for clarity, again, in the government service, one of the issues I've seen where a lot of persons, when they're hired, and I don't know if this is similar in agencies and departments, but certainly in government service, I know that persons get certain bands with which they're paid, and that's based on qualifications, experience, and length of service. And I'm just trying to understand if that is so at Petrojam. I don't know if you are able to respond now. And I'm not understanding how it would be. You had indicated that, I don't know if you said there was a second degree or not, but how someone would come into a job with someone where there's someone with a second degree. I'm not certain how that operates and get a higher salary within this service. That's what I'm just trying to, yeah. Yes,
so
I think.
Through you, Chair, the salary band that we make reference to is the basic, and at no point in time have we ever filled a vacancy and gone outside of the band. I believe that we keep making reference to total compensation, which is different from a basic salary. So the basic salary ranges have never been breached. We follow what is dictated by the Ministry of Finance. So we 12 as opposed to 13. Of course, there are instances where once wage negotiation, we have signed off on those. Then there are things that, of course, we do pay in terms of a claim. And so in a lot of the instances when I just came, there was one outstanding year, which was unsigned. We have since done that, and we have moved along the process. So let me be very clear, we have not breached the salary scale at no point in time.
Yes, no, no, and that's not what I was really asking. I was saying that I've had situations in the government service where we've taken on consultants that I know of personally, and two consultants, one with a first degree, one with a second degree, and they were put in different bands. One earned more based on the qualifications. So I'm just saying, in a case like this, for someone to come in to the service with less qualifications but to get a higher salary is unusual in government service. So I think that's just something that would need to be clarified.
Yes, Chairman, and let me provide that clarity here since I am the incumbent in the no role. The experience and I've understood that there is a request for the job description. The job description does indicate that the qualification is a MBA or equivalent qualifications. I do have a certification, a graduate certification, and I'm at least more than halfway to earning my MBA currently. Now, separate and apart from that, the organization, if I recall, they asked about some specific competencies which were also considered due to the fact that the last 2 HR persons did not provide or did not realize certain objectives as it related to the business. So those are the considerations, Chairman, that were taken that formed the hiring.
So you said in responding to the article, it said that what was required was a MBA or equivalent?
Yes, I am confirming that, Chairman. We were asked to provide or make a distinction in terms of the qualifications and experiences. Myself and the former person in the role, and the job description, when we went back through it, it did ask for an MBA or equivalent qualifications and experience.
But you did not have those qualifications.
Yes, I hear rumblings. I do have more than.
No, you can. But
yes, so I'm answering to you, Chairman. Yes, an MBA or equivalent qualifications. So the incumbent is scored on a myriad of skills, qualifications, and competencies, and not just by way of dictate, but also by way of what projects or what you would have realized coming into the entity that can be justified.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's unusual. If the basic qualification is an MBA or equivalent, and that was not met, then the decision was taken by the panel that to waive the actual requirements and to do it based on other. Yeah, well, you can give me clarification if that is the case.
Through you, Chairman, I wouldn't want to say waive.
Chairman, may I, and with all due respect and a point of order,
no, absolutely.
Can we treat with the information through the submission to you, Chairman? I appeal to you.
You'd
for
be
that.
more comfortable. All right, I'm willing to go along.
No, not
with
I know I regret respecting Mr. Morgan's appeal. But just one little thing about further to the question was raised. Employee benefit, things like motor vehicle loan, right? What's the company policy with motor vehicle loan? For employees.
Hold on, no. I think though. Let me be
you
fair.
can supply
yes,
that in the response.
Please, let us supply.
And what is the historical, what is the company provision and what obtains now for everybody? Yeah.
Yes.
And whether or not there's been a variance from that.
All right. So you're saying, Mr. Morgan, that you'd prefer that discussion for it to come with the actual submission that you're going to provide.
Absolutely, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Now, members, we have not really gone as far as I'd hope we would. It's now 5 minutes to 1, and I don't really think that we want to go much further. We have to make a decision about how we proceed from here. I just want to. Just one of the questions here, the fourth question, the engagement of the consultant. You have the actual details of the company?
So, Chairman, I was following the order.
I know. I'm jumping
sort of
because this is some of the things I think are less.
Details in front of me, but I'm just searching through some information here.
Members, Yeah, while you're looking.
Is it which consultant specifically?
The Asha Corporation.
Okay. Okay, no. So I believe the information that was requested at the time had to do with shareholders. I am just wading through some information here. Direct. So I'm not seeing the specific information right here, Chairman, and this is another set of information that we're committed to submitting.
Yes, we had asked for the shareholders and the board of directors, and certainly the scope of their technical competencies.
Background, competencies.
All right, members, we're having a bit of a difficulty, twofold. One, we really have not touched the wider scope of the ministry, and we have not gone through, I would say, at least 70% of the information that we have here. What I'm going to suggest, members, is that we get the information that we had requested in writing before the end of the week. I do not believe that with the best of intentions, I don't know if we meet again next week, we're going to have to go through this. I don't think it is necessary. I think bringing the entire ministry back, because given the pace at which it is going. So what I wanted from the committee is some guidance about how we treat with the next meeting.
Yes. Chairman, I wonder if in relation to two of the agencies, I can table some questions today for them to respond between now and the time when we meet next. And then we will schedule for them to come. But I do have some questions that I think is important for them to be aware of. And I will allow them to come back.
There are two ways. What you can do is, if the committee will so advise, you could possibly just, you can either
take them out in 5 minutes.
Or
in 5 minutes.
You'd like to be able to have that.
Yes, 5 minutes I can table them and no problem.
Or you can just do it through the clerk.
Yeah, but I do it in 5 minutes and we can.
All right. So we will do that before we adjourn.
Right.
For next week.
No, to the
who do we invite to next week's meeting? I suggest we finish Petrojam. At the most, we could invite 1 or 2 agencies from.
Yes.
Who are you?
Well,
the questions
I have some questions for Nestle. I have some questions for EGO, and we do have some questions for Universal Service.
All right. So, members, could we invite those 3 alone for the next meeting? You ask the questions.
Well, if I'm allowed to do the questions, they'll be well prepared.
That's the point I'm making, so that they'll be well prepared. I'm going to allow you to do that, and then the others don't, and then we'll just try and finish off. Hopefully, the general manager would have returned by next week, Wednesday, and we can do that. So, members, we agree on that?
Yes.
All right. Now, before I take your questions, Member Paulwell, the secretary to the committee needs, what I want is, what specific questions have we that may be further to this meeting, so that there's already a series of questions that have been asked that we'll get the documentation for. Members, what I'm going to suggest is that you get that information. If there's information you require additional, could members simply contact the clerk, the secretary, and have the secretary before Friday, and the secretary can ask can include it if there's some supplementary, if that is okay with UPS. And
just to remind the committee chair and members that as of today, the energy portfolio no longer resides in the Ministry, the then Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. And so with respect to the energy agencies, that communication would have to go to the Office of the Prime Minister.
Well, to Ministry of Economic Growth. The good thing about that is shortly we'll only have to invite one ministry.
Mr. Chairman, then perhaps, Mr. Chairman, perhaps yes, it would then be useful not to have them come next week then, in light of the change and if and correspondence, and just getting the persons in order getting the persons in that space where the organization can or sufficient organization can be had to get them here. Today being well Wednesday. And
Member Terlong, I see the members here, but
I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering
what it may require is for us to also advise the permanent secretary who will be taking over, but it doesn't change the focus of what we're doing. It is only that it's only the persons who are the accountable officer. We will redirect where necessary and get guidance with that. So members, let me just be clear. Members who have specific questions with regard to anything they get, please just ask the clerk, the secretary to address those. Now, Member Paulwell, you have some specific questions for the three?
Following you. You have completed in regards to the composition of who you want back for the next meeting?
Yes, we are going to take Petrojam, and Member Paulwell has some questions for just 3 agencies. We'll take those next week. And what we can do, Ms. Bailey, is invite the agencies not to come at 10, but maybe to come at 11.
There are some questions that we asked before.
With regard to
Petrojam.
No, please. Let me explain. All the questions that we had asked of Petrojam are to be given responses in writing. So those responses are coming this week. I'm indicating that if there's clarity needed when you get that, please contact the secretary and have her, yes, and she can further clarify that. However, what we will do is next week in meeting, we'll do Petrojam at 10, and at, say, I would figure 11:30, we could invite the 3 agencies to come by then, and we would start with these questions that Member Paulwell has. All right, Member Paulwell, do you want to take
Yes. Firstly, in relation to Nestle, and it's just for you to record and to provide us with answers next week. I would like to understand the job position and function of Mr. Lawrence Pommels at Nestle, and to indicate when he was first appointed and the movements through the ranks. Secondly, the Silk project. We'd like to get some details on what this project is all about.
Sorry, which was the first one?
Right, about Mr. Lawrence Pommels.
Yes.
At Nestle. When was he first appointed, and where is he now in the organizational structure? The Silk project, the street lighting, installation, loss reduction, and community renewal project. We need to know who is in charge of that project, what is the budget for that project, how much has been spent to date. Right, what has been accomplished in the project to date. I'd like to also know how many senior managers have been terminated and or resigned in the last 2 years at Nestle. And specifically in relation to the original task of that company, which was rural electrification, how much have been provided in the last 2 financial years for rural electrification, and what has been accomplished there. In relation to EGOV, yes.
Sure. I have 2 questions. Also, can you get an update on the CAP project also? And if we can get a listing of the projects that have been done from 2016 to probably the end of 2017 also.
In relation to EGOV, how many times have this board and its subcommittees met in the last 2 years, and what has been the cost to the government? Also, a specific question now, an amount was paid to a lawyer that has been struck off the register of $500,000. I want to understand what is the justification for this payment to the lawyer, and I won't call the name, but EGOV is quite aware. Thirdly, why did the chairman go to an e-governance conference in Estonia, especially without any line staff members being there at that function? And if we could get the cost of that trip. What are the total payments to the chairman and expenditure based on directives from the chairman of EGOV? Who hired the current HR director? Whether it was really a function of the board or online manager? How many staff members have resigned, fired, the usual, in relation to that organization? And what is the status of the Price Waterhouse organizational redesign project for that entity? And of course, with that, the status of technical staff retention. Similar question that we've been asking about Petrojam. And finally, in relation to Universal Service Fund, what is the role of Mr. Lawrence Pommels, same gentleman, in relation to projects under the Universal Service Fund? One. Which PR company is involved in the operationalizing of the PR project or program for Universal Service Fund? What is the cost of this? And similar theme, how many members have been terminated since the last 2 years?
Member Powell, I think just one of the things you could do, could you just, I know you're very technologically savvy, if you can just forward them to the secretary of the committee as well, just for the record.
Yes, of course.
All right, members.
With one to PCJ. Mr. Mr. Watson, there's a Fontil property. Could you provide what currently obtains on that property in terms of activities? 2, how many persons are employed to that property? And what is the cost of the compensation cost for the staff retained there? And thirdly, has any contract or contracts been entered into regarding activities on that property, and what those contracts provide for and their quantum, individual contracts and cumulative amounts since those contracts came into being?
All right. Yeah, a question.
Yes. No, Mr. Watson says he could answer those now.
No, I was asking you want a written response to your questions.
Right. Yes. Just bring them.
You have the responses now?
No, let's
the only thing I don't have is the number.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
But I can tell you the rest.
Let us do it for the next. I don't want. Is yours a clarification? I really want us to. move on. This is to of whom? Oh yes, no, absolutely. No, what's the question?
Thank you very kindly, Chairman. Mr. Morgan, what is the status, question for response for next week, as it relates to the e-learning project in schools? When
the who? This is EGO. This is EGO.
Yeah, man.
E-learning. Sure.
E-learning company of Jamaica Limited. I'm asking, what is the status of the e-learning project as relates to the computers in schools? Schools were given computers some years ago. They are now obsolete, and they need to get...
that's the permanent secretary.
Right. Yes. Thank you, PS.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Morgan.
I'm not certain it falls under Petrojam. Yet.
No. And the final one has to do with I think Mr. Paul will allude to it, a number of areas in my constituency where I had submitted a listing as it relates to extension of electricity services, and what is the status of expanding the services in areas that are without electricity. I have New Broughton, I have several other areas, and the documents were submitted to Nestle.
All right, thank you. Okay, so members, I think we're clear on how we're going to proceed. I'd like to thank the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, with or without energy, but all the representatives of the departments and agencies, especially the Petrojam. I would say, Mr. Morgan, you have given some clarity today. Very, your responses were clear. So thank you, and thanks to the team.
Chairman, just 1 second. The ministry has been split. I'm just inquiring.
We had indicated.
Acting Permanent Secretary, you will remain, or who is going?
I was just trying.
Yes.
You don't know yet.
Yes.
At this stage, the logistics have not been sorted through, and a meeting is scheduled between Ministry of Science and Technology and the OPM.
Economic growth, yeah. All right. So thank you to everybody who came. I'm sorry that we didn't get around to the different departments and agencies, but we'll try and do it a little more expeditiously next week. Members, thank you, and the meeting is now adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, if anything changes, can you please advise us if there will not be a meeting next week due to any exigencies which might arise, especially having regard to what Acting PS has now indicated. So it might seem that we cannot meet next week.
Voices. Some voices could have stayed home.
This is the